A famous TV character once said, "No such thing as coincidence." But you might be surprised how much they happen. Let's discover 14 of the most unbelievable coincidences ever on Earth. 14. Twin lives. Here's a coincidence about two twins that might just creep you out. As sad as it may sound, it's not uncommon for twins to be separated at birth for various reasons. This is what happened to two brothers in Ohio upon birth. But when they were reunited, they found out they had lived very similar lives unintentionally. For example, on their adoption certificates, they were both named James. As they grew older, they both became police officers, and they both married a woman named Linda. They both had a son that they named James Allen, too. Not done yet, though. Both also had a dog they named Toy, too. Finally, both brothers divorced their first wives, then each married women named Betty. I think they need to be told that twins don't have to do everything the same. Number 13. Birds in the hand. Picture a scenario for me. You're in the woods and you're doing a project on birds, and you bring a book with you to start identifying the birds themselves. Then, as you turn the page to a specific bird, you hear a bird flying down and land in your book, and you notice that the bird you're looking at on the page is the same bird that is now right next to you. The odds of this happening are incredibly low, and yet that's exactly what happened to a kid once, and I bet that was an experience he didn't forget. 12. Inspiration. This is a full circle coincidence that is hard to deny as something weird. A kid decided to become a soldier when he went to an air show and saw an OH-58 Kiowa and got to sit in it, and his grandfather and uncle took a picture of him in the pilot seat. Very basic stuff, right? Fast forward 20 years later, and the pilot was looking through some old photos and saw the one of him in the helicopter and realized he had been flying a OH-58 Kiowa for a while now. So he asked operations if they had ever had a Kiowa with that ID number of the one from his past. They did. In fact, it was just down the way from him. The Kiowa he had been flying for the past month had been the same one he sat in 20 years previous. So he literally got to fly the helicopter that inspired his entire military career. Full circle indeed. 11. Spot the dog. It's also an interesting experience to see the birth of life, especially for pets. But for one dog mother, she unintentionally gave her children great identifying markers via spots. While this doesn't sound like a hard-to-believe coincidence, when you look at the spots, you'll notice that they are numerical in nature. No, literally, one dog has one spot, another has two spots, and the final one has 3 spots. What's more, each one has a spot on their tail, and the other 2 spots line up with a tail, one on their back. That's almost too perfect, don't you think? Number 10. Predicting a tragedy. There have been many times in history that tragic events have unintentionally been predicted, but one of the most insane coincidences might be the predicting of the Titanic. This happened in 1898. An author named Morgan Robertson wrote a book called The Wreck of a Titan. This was a disaster story about an 800-foot liner that was doomed to hit an iceberg and sink in April while traveling through the North Atlantic. The Titanic was 883 feet long, was going through the North Atlantic, hit an iceberg, and sank on April 14th through the 15th. It sank in the early morning. Coincidence or something more? You tell me. 9. The death of 2 founding fathers. One of the things that makes the United States of America so great to some is its history, to the extent that its independence came via a group of men who felt that the time had come to stop taking orders from a king. 2 of these men were John Adams and Thomas Jefferson, who not only were instrumental in the independence of America, but also the fact that they were both presidents of the United States after they had established said freedom. Adams was the 2nd president and Jefferson was number 3. Now, despite them being allies in terms of the fight for America's freedom, they weren't exactly the best of friends. In fact, they were actually known to be rather fierce rivals. ones who wouldn't sabotage each other per se, but weren't afraid to show each other up. So where's the coincidence here? Simple. They actually died on the very same day, July 4th, 1826, 50 years after they signed the Declaration of Independence and started their campaign for American freedom from England. But here's the rub. They didn't die at the same time. Thomas Jefferson actually died at around noon, and Adams died around 6 p.m. Not knowing that Jefferson was already gone, Adams' last words to anyone in the world was, "Thomas Jefferson survives." If these guys made it to the same afterlife, I bet they were one-upping each other about who died first and who got to live in the afterlife first. I'm just saying. Number 8. Bite the bullet. Can coincidence be described as irony at times? Sure, and this story will prove it to you. For this is the tale of a man named Henry Zeeland, who was a regular man doing very regular things. He had a girlfriend, but then broke up with her, which happens as you all know. But this particular breakup left her emotionally distraught, to the point that she committed suicide. A very sad story, but we're just getting started. This tragedy greatly upset her brother, who wanted to take revenge on Zeeland by shooting him dead. However, when he tried, he missed, and the bullet hit a nearby tree, where it remained for a very long time. Years later, Zeeland decided to get rid of the tree, but couldn't do it via regular means. His plan then? He was going to use dynamite to help bring it down, which might be considered overkill, but whatever. When he detonated the dynamite, the bullet, which was still in the tree, got launched with lethal force, and it hit and killed Zeeland. Yep, that happened. Number 7. Miss Unsinkable. How unlucky are you when you have the unfortunate honor of being on 3 ships that sink into the ocean, and yet you survive all 3 times? That was the question many asked one Violet Jessup, who was given the nickname of Miss Unsinkable because of her experiences. But not just regular experiences on boats. She was on the HMS Olympic when it collided with the HMS Hawk. She was on the HMHS Britannic when it struck a mine at sea, and she was aboard the RMS Titanic when it hit the infamous iceberg that sank it. 3 ships, 3 different causes of sinking, and yet she still survived. Miss Unsinkable indeed, right? For the record, one of the big reasons that this is considered a major coincidence is that the Olympic, Britannic, and the Titanic were sister ships, meaning that they were made in the same place by the same people. So an entire family of ships tried to take her down, but couldn't. And some of those ships, especially the Titanic, were built to be unsinkable. How's that for irony? 6. You save my baby twice. For a parent, the thought of your child getting hurt on your watch is a sobering reminder to be mindful of where you are, whether it be in a stroller, in a vehicle, or near an apartment window. In 1930, a man named Joseph Figlock was minding his own business and going down the street when a baby apparently fell out of an apartment and landed right on top of him. Thankfully, neither of them were hurt, and proof that the universe does have a good sense of timing. But this isn't the coincidence, because 1 year later, Joseph was walking down that same street past that same apartment, and guess who crashed into him from above? The same baby, just 1 year older. Sure enough, the baby landed on top of him, and they were both fine once more. These are the kinds of things that make you scratch your head in regards to how it happens, because it doesn't make sense, yet we know it happened. Number 5. The beginning and the end. World War I was a war that no one had ever seen before, as multiple continents got involved in the conflict. But the event that started it all was the assassination of the Archduke Ferdinand of Austria. While many know about his death, few know about his car, which had a very ironic and coincidental license plate, AIII-118, which means nothing on its own, but the day that the armistice for the end of World War I was November 11, 1918, or 11/11/18, which, if you remove the A from the license plate, is exactly what it reads in its own way. 4. Hoover over your family. The Hoover Dam was one of the largest construction projects in the world at the time, and not surprisingly, people died while it was being built, which isn't surprising given the massive size of the project and the territory that it was being built into. Over the course of its construction, 112 people died before the dam was complete. The first of the victims was a man named J.G. Tierney, and he died on December 20th. Why does that matter? Well, fast forward 13 years on December 20th, and the final death at the dam happened. Who was it? Patrick W. Tierney, J.G. Tierney's son. Once again, you can't make this stuff up. Number 3, a perfect bookend. Have you ever lost something or gave something away and wished that you could get it back? Well, legendary children's book author Anne Parrish had that feeling one day, albeit in a roundabout way. In the 1920s, she went to a bookshop in Paris, France, and when she did, she saw a book called Jack Frost and Other Stories. Parrish had this book when she was a child growing up in America, so when she saw this nostalgia trip, she showed it to her husband who was with her. Curious, he opened the book, and inside was an inscription that read, Anne Parrish, 209 North Weber Street, Colorado Springs. Yes, the book missed her too. 2. To take a life, to save a life. One of the most infamous assassinations in United States history was that of John Wilkes Booth taking the life of U.S. President Abraham Lincoln during a play. He shouted Sic Semper Tyrannis as he escaped and felt that he had done a great justice to the South, who had just lost the Civil War in part due to Lincoln's leadership. So, what's the coincidence? Well, a mere year before the events of that day, John's brother Edwin saw a person about to fall onto some train tracks in Washington, D.C., and he rushed to save him. He did so. That person he saved? Lincoln's son, Robert Todd Lincoln. Granted, he likely didn't know he was saving the son of a president, but that's still one heck of a coincidence that he saved a life in the Lincoln family while another took one. Number 1. James Dean's Porsche 550 Spyder. There are coincidences in this world, no doubt, and then there are coincidences that may truly be curses. Full stop, such as with James Dean's infamous car. James Dean is arguably one of the most famous people to ever live, especially given the time period he was in, and his sudden death left many stunned. But his car left many people much more than stunned. Dean was a big fan of cars, and he had a Porsche 356 while filming the legendary movie Rebel Without a Cause, but decided to upgrade his ride to a Porsche 550 Spyder. Once he got the car, he wanted to customize it from top to bottom and hired George Barris to do the customization. After getting the car, Dean would have lunch with Alec Guinness, who you might know as the original Obi-Wan Kenobi. When Dean had Guinness look at the car, Guinness was unsettled. He felt the car had a sinister way about it and promised Dean that if he continued to drive that car, it would kill him in a week. Sure enough, 7 days later, Dean was killed in a horrific car accident in his Porsche 550 Spyder. That is a coincidence for sure, but we're just getting started with this story. You see, after the wreck, George Barris bought back the car in hopes of restoring it or at least selling off the parts. A week after doing so, the car fell off the trailer it was on and broke a man's leg. Barris then started to sell parts off the car to other people, including Troy McHenry and William Eschrid. During a race in the cars that had the parts, McHenry hit a tree and died, while Eschrid lost control of his car and rolled, causing him severe injuries. Think we're done now? Oh no, not yet. Barris tried to get rid of the car, but Highway Patrol thought of this as a good way to show off the dangers of car accidents and convinced him to give it to some exhibits. The first exhibit failed, and the garage that housed the car mysteriously burned down, but the car was untouched in the blaze. Coincidence? I think not. It was then given to a high school where it fell off a display and hurt a student. You can't make this stuff up. The next 3 people, all truck drivers who came into contact with the car, all suffered accidents of some sort, including one falling out of the truck and then getting run over by the Porsche itself somehow. The car disappeared shortly after that, and I speak for the world when I say it's probably for the best that it never appears again. Sure enough, it hasn't that we know of. So try and explain that set of coincidences. I'll wait.